Girl, you the man, and she love me when I'm in it, and she never be pretending nothing is real. She gon' take.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host today for the Eat Spot with Camille. Actually, I'm your host here Monday through Friday, so it doesn't really change. But today I'm so excited. I have Kelvin Bulluck as my guest today. He is a photographer based out of the DC area, and he has done some amazing photos that I cannot wait to hear his inspiration, how he got started, all of the good stuff that the E-Spot is known for. So thank you so much, Kelvin, for being my guest today. I really appreciate you.
Oh, no. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with creative folks like yourself. So anytime I can do that, I'm all for it.
Well, I appreciate it very much. And let's just dive right into it. Wait, let me back up. Because I noticed on Instagram, Facebook, there's a lot of different names for you. So I want to know exactly which name do you prefer so I can use that from here on out.
Yeah. So people just call me Kel. It's because Kelvin is so easily mispronounced. People are like Calvin or Kevin. I'm like, nah, just call me Kel, man. Just call me Kel. So.
Well, I will change that now.
Oh, you changing it real time. That's what's up.
Oh, yeah. Like I wanted to make sure because I know the Facebook will populate with your government name if you let them. So I wanted to make sure whatever name you prefer that I had it up for you. Now, how did you get started in photography?
So it's kind of a funny question because prior to picking up a camera, my main outlet for creativity was storytelling, whether it was through poetry or doing short stories and things of that nature. But back in 2010, I received a gift, and it was a little point and shoot camera, a little Canon PowerShot. And I took it and I started kind of just walking around with it. I was taking little landscape photos. I was taking just kind of like street style photography. And as I started to do it more and more, I was like, yo, my photos don't really look like what I'm seeing on magazines or what I'm seeing in on like billboards. So I'm like, why is it that my photos don't really look like what I think they should? Mm-hmm. And so this is in my mind when one day I was invited to a luau. It was like a 30th birthday party that a friend of mine was having, and she was just doing it really big with a luau theme. And I was like, hey, you mind if I come and just, take some photos with my camera? I'm not a professional, but, I just want to kind of capture some of the moments. And she was like, okay, cool. So I'm walking around, I'm taking photos. And at one point there was a group of women at a table just kind of chatting, having a good time, laughing. And I started snapping photos of it. And at one point I captured like one of those definitive moments where it was like everything lined up and everybody was having a good time and all of the expressions were right. And when I looked at the image, I was like, wow, like this is actually what I need to be doing is storytelling through imagery. So from that point on, I just became a student of photography. I mean, I consumed any and everything that I could, whether it was YouTube University or Google Community College. I was just trying to get it all in. And then I learned, different ways to really make my images pop and how to make them look more professional. And even upgrading eventually to, a better camera with some better lenses. And it's really been a journey that's continued ever since then. I mean, I picked up some live mentors. I picked up some digital mentors, whether it was through podcast or watching just all the various videos that were out there. But then ultimately, it was really about doing the work. So I would watch all the videos, but then I would spend hours just, whether I was doing self portraits in my room or going out and doing street photography or asking my friends to jump in front of my camera and be like my test dummy so I could really, hone the skills. So it was really amazing how quickly I picked it up. I mean, people would see the images, maybe a year into it, and they were like, yo, you've only been doing this a year? And I'm like, yeah, I'm still learning. I'm not like great at it, but it just kind of tripped me out that people were really like gassing me up. And I thought they were just talking, but I started to believe it a little bit. So that kept me going. And then, after picking up the mentors and really having people critique the work, I just started getting better and better. And yeah, like here I am.
Well, so when did you go from, I hate to say hobby, but I guess technically until you're I guess, a professional, they call it a hobby. So
Hmm.
when did you take that leap from just doing it for the fun of it to I'm going to make this my job and
So
do it full time?
So it was 2012 when I actually decided to go ahead and make it official. I started an LLC, got all my little marketing materials together, got my bank account separate for that. It was so 2 years from the point where I picked up a camera to the point where I was like, you know what, let me start making this official. Let's start paying some taxes, let Uncle Sam get his little cut. And it's been a continuous learning process ever since. I mean, it's always the industry is always evolving and changing, whether it's through the technology or just the needs of the people. I mean, it's really been a journey, and it continues. I'm pretty much resigned to the fact that I'm going to be like a lifelong student of photography, whether it's the skill set itself or the business aspect. So.
Very good point. Because I don't think anyone could predict what is going on now with our industry and how much it has changed. And I want to talk about that, but I want to back up a little bit because you mentioned some of the podcasts and so on. And I'm curious, what podcast helped you out, just in case other people want to listen to them, or maybe they're still around. We can share the love. So if
Yeah.
anyone else wanted to know about it too, if you still remember
So
them.
the podcast that I used to listen to, I don't even know if it's around anymore, but I can say that the videos that I used to watch, they were, I'm pretty sure these people are still around. There was people like Scott Kelby. I was also heavily influenced by a photographer who I think he died in like the early 2000s, but his work was influencing me from before I even knew who his name was, and it's Richard Avedon. He is like an amazing photographer, and my work is like deeply informed by his aesthetic and the style that he put out there. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard of Richard Avedon, but he was definitely,
Feel like I have, but I can't think of his work on the top of my head,
yeah.
but I'll definitely look him up.
But also, who else? I was also really into this blog called aphotoeditor.com. They post a lot of great content in regards to um, photographers who are really more working more in the commercial realm,
Okay.
not so much like the wedding photographers or portrait photographers, but people who are working for like publications or working commercially for big brands, because that was really what I was interested in, was really working with publications, getting my work more into magazines and on billboards and things of that nature, which is a process. But in addition to that, there were so many. I mean, basically what I would do is I would go to like Stitcher is what I use. I have a Droid, so Stitcher has always been the place where I go to find my
Mm.
podcast.
So you're
And
the
so I
one
would
with the
just type
droid.
in photography. I'm sorry, what?
I was making a droid. My friends, we always make droid jokes. So
Oh,
I
you a
slipped
hater?
in a little. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Camille,
I'm sorry.
no. I'm
I
just kidding.
know.
I'm just kidding.
I'm just curious. Is it cracked? Do you have a cracked
Nope,
screen?
nope.
See,
This
you're the
thing.
one.
What do you mean?
Every droid friend I have has a cracked screen. I'm like, how is that possible? I have
Nope.
never cracked any of my screens.
Not cracked it off. Had this
Oh,
thing
and it's
since
a
like
Samsung.
2017.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, yeah, I could talk about Droid versus iPhone all day because I'm a hater. So, but let's not. I don't want to get off point. So, Stitcher is made for more so for Androids. I didn't realize that. So,
Yeah,
learn
yeah. Well,
something
yeah.
there
Well,
too.
I don't know if it's just for Androids, but it's just how
Okay.
I find, or this the app that I use. So, but I'm always, what I would do is just go to any of those search engines where there's a podcast or a video, whether it's YouTube or whatever, Venmo. I mean, not Venmo, Vimeo. I'm thinking about money right now. So,
Do I need to put your Venmo up? No, I'm kidding.
at
It's
Kelvin Bulluck.
like
No,
hint, hint.
no, but
Me first.
but I would just go and type in photography or anything like behind the scenes, because I was like a
Mm,
fiend for watching
I
like
get it.
behind the scenes videos and looking at lighting setups, and you really just taking in as much as I possibly could.
See, and I appreciate all this information because I normally work in front of the camera, but for fun, I also like to work behind the camera. I have more camera equipment than I know what to use it for. Because it's so true about the statement. It's not about the tool, it's about the photographer. They
E-
could
ex-
make a photo with a Polaroid look like an editorial. And I
That
think Naomi Campbell proves that with her Essence cover that she used an iPhone for, not an Android. And I'm kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
hater. No,
I'm
just
just
playing.
kidding. Because I will totally accept sponsorships from Androids. But needless to say, it was just funny to just see how people put so much emphasis on the tools they're using and not so much the person who's using the tool, because it does make a difference being able to frame and capture and lighting and all the things you mentioned. And I'm glad that you're giving this information, because sometimes people are so scared of telling for the fear that if you tell them how to make, I always say this to my husband because he's always like, why are you always telling people information for free? I'm like, I can give somebody the exact same recipe. They still won't make the same sauce. Like, there's enough room for everyone. ABC is not worried about NBC, and Camille is not worried about,
And
my
that's
friends that
real.
are doing the same thing, because things
That's
we can
exactly
coordinate
real.
and help.
And I live by that because I mean, like you said, I can give somebody my exact camera. I can give them the exact lighting setup, even in the same studio in the same moment, and they're going to take a completely different image than I am because we all see things differently. We all have different
Exactly.
filters. And speaking about equipment, I know there are a lot of photographers out there who are really big into like being gearheads. We call them gearheads because they're like always about the equipment. Like, oh, I got to have the latest and greatest camera. I got to have the best lighting. I got to have all of this equipment. When really, when I'm on set, I try to keep it as minimal as possible because really, I don't need all that clutter. First of all, I know how to use it and I know when to employ it. But if I can keep things simple and really focus on that connection between myself and the subject, and also making sure that I got my composition right and I got everything flowing like I need it, like that just helps me all the more. And you mentioned something about, people are showing right now in this day and age, it really doesn't matter what kind of camera you have as long as you have one. So there's a saying in photography is the best camera you can have is the one that's on you. And honestly,
Yeah,
one
I
of
like
my
that
favorite
one.
photos is one that I took with a Droid camera phone. So it's a long story, but it definitely, I look back on it every so often and I'm like, yo, this photo still stands up as one of my favorites. And I took it with my camera phone. So
Well, it takes an eye. It's an art. It is definitely an art. And kind of going back to Naomi Campbell, and just even with the corona, all the different things that are going on with COVID, how is that affecting your business now? Because it is something that usually you have to do in person, but there's people. I just saw one of the girls I interviewed, Miss North Carolina America, that she just did a FaceTime photo shoot for her pageant. So it's becoming more and more prevalent that people are doing things with their phones, not necessarily with a camera. So any idea? I mean, are you doing that yet? Any ideas of how you're gonna, I guess, moving forward, how you're gonna still be able to be a photographer without those social distancing and everything intact?
So, very good question. It's something that I do find myself asking. I've asked it pretty much every day since we've been on lockdown. And to answer your first question, how did it affect my business? Well, it completely stopped all shoots that I had planned and lined up. I think this is like really the first time where I've ever actually had to like refund like deposits and things of that nature. And honestly, on one end, yeah, it hurt. It was like, oh man, like I can't do the thing that I really love.
Mhm.
But I've been blessed to have multiple streams of income and have a wife that's supportive, and we're able to live within our means and keep things solid. So I haven't been actually shooting. I know some of my photographer friends have transitioned to doing more of the like FaceTime shoots, and I also know of commercial photographer friends of mine who have basically taken the initiative to say to their clients who have products, hey, if you are, still wanting to have some of your products photographed, mail them to me and then I'll do product shots at home. And I'm
Okay.
not really a product photographer, so that's not like, I'm really big on doing the things that I find joy in. I'm kind of like the Marie Kondo of photography. If it doesn't spark joy, I don't really want nothing to do with it. But I'm not knocking
Right.
anybody that does do those kind of things. It's like find your niche and lean into it. So I know that people are doing that. They're just looking at different ways to continue shooting. And for me, this has been a time for me to kind of just step back and look at where I've been and where I'm going in the future. And I'm still always a fan. I will always be a fan of storytelling. And so I have been thinking about, maybe even doing some writing on the side, looking into maybe even doing some script writing. I go out to LA quite often, and I have quite a few friends that are writers, and we sit and have these conversations. And I'm like, I think there is still something in me on the literary aspect. So not saying that I'm going to completely give up photography, because honestly, I am seeing a way forward with how people are going to be conducting themselves while they're in the studio, with different safe practices that I've been seeing a lot of people putting out some different guidance. And that's going to be beneficial. Also continuing to like social distance. As a matter of fact, on Sunday, I was basically commissioned by an art curator in DC to do a special photography project. I can't give all the details right now, but
No,
it did
but
involve
you can
me
tell us
like
where to find it later,
I will.
right?
I will. I
Okay,
definitely
perfect.
will. But it involved me photographing a couple of people individually. And so what we had to do was we had to lay the ground rules up front, like, hey, this is what 6 feet apart looks like. I'm wearing my mask. You have your mask on. Let's be smart about it. It was outside, so we're not having to worry about recirculated air. And that was pretty cool actually, because for that was like the first time since March 14th that I've actually like picked up my camera and photographed someone else. And I'm not gonna lie, man, I was enjoying it. I was like a kid in the candy store out there creating again. One of my nicknames on
Yeah.
Instagram.
I'm surprised you're not shooting your wife
So
all the
it's
time in the photography
exactly. So
sense.
she's so through with me. I mean,
Oh, okay.
when I first started photography, she was like my first muse. Like I was really
Yeah,
practicing on her like all the time. So yeah, she's over that. She's over that. Now every
I
now and then
can
she will
relate.
want me to photograph her for something she's got going on. But if it's for me, she's like, man, get out of here with that. But it's all good. It's
She's
all
like,
good.
do you know my rates?
Exactly. Exactly.
My husband's the same way. I can't get him to because for work I have to a lot of times turn in digitals and so on. He will hurry up, take 3 shots. They may be straight, maybe not. I get what I get sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I forget all the time, like, oh wait, I could just use the auto timer and stuff and
That's
selfie
true.
mode. But my daughter, she's almost tall enough that she can take pictures of me that it's not I don't look like I'm super taller than what I really am. And then but she was my muse. I photographed her every single day. My
Mm.
parents joked about that there's not a day of her life that's not documented.
See, that is
And
amazing.
unfortunately, as she's gotten older, and well, mainly I think also because we've been stuck home, it's like
Hmm.
yeah, what are we taking pictures of? Us over by the iPad, us over by the TV. There's
No,
not.
that's
But anytime we're outside, I'm like, but with my
please tell
iPhone,
me that you're printing those images that you have from like when she was younger, because I am like a fan of printed.
absolutely, I have photo books. Yes.
Yes,
And
yes.
I was just looking at them today, like, oh my gosh, I have like a year to catch up and I need to get on it. Do you have a suggestion for printed, who you suggested to print
Yeah,
from? Or
so I can
I
give
was
you one,
going
and I can
cheapo
I can tell you
Shutterfly.
that I'm not endorsed. I'm not
Right, right,
getting
right.
paid for this. But Nations Photo Lab is a print lab that I use. They're actually based outside of Baltimore,
Oh,
coincidentally. And but their quality is just like perfect for the type of stuff that I do. And anytime anybody asks me, I'm always like, yeah, check out nationsphotolab.com.
perfect. I'm glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
I'll switch between Costco and Shutterfly, just whoever has the best deal because I'm usually printing out a bunch at one time. So I'm glad to know, like, whenever those days for the bigger 8x10 photos or wall photos to go with
Yeah.
Photo Lab. So I
And then they
really
have
already
and they have plenty of options at Nations Photo Lab. So they have like all of those options available. So
nice. So going back to your photography before coronavirus, you've
okay.
done a lot of different work. What sticks out to you the most is something that you were the most proud of that, or even let's go back even further. When you first became a professional photographer, what was your first gig that you were like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm glad I'm doing this. This really
Ah,
turned out exactly the way I was hoping."
Ooh, that's a good one. Let me think back to that. Um,
Or maybe it was the first big check where you're like, okay, I made it. Just what does that feeling feel like where you're like, I'm doing what I love and I'm getting paid for it,
You
basically?
know, honestly, that feeling hits me every time I'm on set and I'm working with people who are passionate about what they're doing and they're in their lane and just like when I'm shooting, right? When somebody
Mhm.
is in front of my camera, normally what they'll say afterwards is like, "Man, Kel, you are really into this. Like your energy is firing me up." And that's real. And I love working with like whether it's the hairstylist, makeup artist, wardrobe stylist, like no matter who it is, if they feel that way, it just creates an environment that makes me feel grateful every time I am on set. So to answer your question, I guess the well, let me really answer your question. The first time I really felt like, oh man, like I've made it. Um, You know, that whole idea of making it is a funny one when I think about your question because honestly, I don't feel like I have yet. I'm still working to make it. But the first time that I felt like it was like, yo, I'm really doing this. Um, I think that was the first time I got a check that was more than just a couple of $100s. I'm like, yo, like people are actually finding value in what it is that I'm doing and that just was just another like fuel, just more fuel to my fire to have me continue like moving forward with it. Like the idea that somebody's going to reach out to me and trust me with their vision, um it just sets me on fire.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. I love your answer for that because I, I think a lot of people that are in this industry every time is that feeling of I'm here, I love it, I'm getting paid to do what I love type of feeling. But I was just wondering if there was ever that one that was just like, okay, they get it, they're gonna keep hiring, or I'm sticking to this, like this is it
Yeah.
for me type of feeling. And I love the campaign, and this is how you came into my world, was from your, I always want to say this backward, face naked or naked face?
Face naked. Yep.
Face naked. Okay.
Yep.
Your face naked campaign, which is beautiful because it's so monochromatic and just, I mean, I need to pull it up because I need for people to see what I'm talking about. But can you tell us a little bit about that campaign and
Yeah.
what
So
initiated it for you?
yeah, definitely. So, and you you had said something earlier that, and then I meant to come back on it,
Oh,
but
okay.
I guess a project that I worked on prior to Face Naked, there was one moment where I was working on this project and I was in London, and I had just finished a day of photographing like over 50 women for this series that I was doing, and it was centered around natural hair, women of color with natural hair, really black women with natural hair, because I always have been a fan of just the kinky and the coily hair textures, and to see when it really started getting popular, just the various amounts of like hairstyles that people would have, and I'm like, yo, I want to document this. Like I want to like do beauty portraits of this. So I
Well,
started
hold
doing
on
that in
one
like
second.
2014.
I'm
I'm sorry.
gonna pull it up. No, no, hold on one second. I just want to pull it up and
Okay.
I will still be able to hear you. I just want to make sure you can hear me as well.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stream so they can see what you're talking about and I'm not on the screen taking up space so it shows more of what you're.
Yeah. And so these are the images from Face Naked, but like I was saying, when I was in London, I was doing another portrait series, and one thing that I did during that portrait series is I made sure that there was like a makeup artist on set for every shoot that I did. And then fast forward, I finished that project. Fast forward to 2016, and Alicia Keys, in the spring of like 2016, she wrote an open letter entitled "Time to Uncover." And I read that open letter because I was seeing a lot of things in the media about there was pretty much like a backlash that she was going out and not wearing makeup and being on album covers and not wearing makeup. And I'm like, this is pretty interesting. So I went and I read her open letter, and at one point she was like, I'm tired of covering up. I'm tired of doing this dance. I want to be me. And that really resonated with me for two reasons. One, I think as human beings, we all are familiar with that idea or that concept of covering up, no matter what it is that we're covering up, whether it's our feelings, our looks, our whatever. And that resonated with me because there's things that I've been guilty of trying to cover up. And the second thing that really resonated with me about that was it made me question my own ideas around beauty and how makeup plays into that. And I thought about that portrait series that I had done with the natural hair, and I thought about, why did I make it a requirement that there was a makeup artist on set? Like, why was makeup required to beautify these women? Now, let me say this. I'm not demifying anybody who does or doesn't wear makeup, but her open letter really made me question my ideas around beauty. And I said, you know what? I want to do another portrait series where I really am just highlighting natural beauty. I want I want to get as many people involved as I can. And originally, like, my goal was like, I want to photograph 100 women, and I don't want them to have makeup or any enhancements on. I just want to get them in the raw and really just showcase the form of beauty that exists prior to the makeup enhancement. So, like I said, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I do feel like, let's celebrate this natural beauty as well, because we don't have a $1 billion industry pushing natural beauty. I mean, the makeup industry is a $1 billion industry, and they have, stakes in the game to say, wear makeup, this is how beauty is, this is what it looks like. And okay, I'm with that. Like, I work on sets all the time where we apply makeup, and it does enhance the look, and it helps tell a story, and it makes things look interesting. I mean, there's numerous reasons why people wear makeup, but I'm like, I want this series to highlight natural beauty and just celebrate it in a different way. So
I love that even with the natural beauty, you didn't Photoshop them.
nope,
Like
no
every
Photoshop.
pimple, every pore, and the woman with the birthmark, like you showed that like all different shades, all different colors, all different sizes, that and each of them so different. And just I loved it because I am one of those girls that loves makeup. But I also was an esthetician, so I really love good skin even better.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it makes a difference if you have a good foundation, not talking about the liquid, to put that makeup on. It's only an enhancement. It's not necessarily that you're hiding flaws or so on. And what are those flaws? Like, just because you have a skin condition, or with the lady with the birthmark, which I meant to bring back up. But I have a big birthmark on my leg, and my agent, she actually has vitiligo, and that was something we shared. And she was just like, I'm hiring you even with the fact that you have that on your leg, and you're gonna work, honey. Because I
yeah,
was kind of concerned, like, how much work can I really get as a model with this big birthmark on my leg and so on. And so
yeah.
just showing those differences with different women, and just really just appreciating the fact that we're all beautiful and different in our natural states, or even when we're not natural, that
Exactly.
you can be appreciated, and spoke to me, sir.
And
And with Alicia Keys being your inspiration, I think some of the kickback with her is that she wasn't completely makeup free in a lot of her pictures. Like, like girls could tell, like, oh, now there's blush or
yeah,
mascara. So, or it could have been that the photographers did that enhancement on her. I'm not sure, but because I remember I was on a different talk show then, and we kind of talked about her. I'm like, of course it's easy for her to do it. She's got access to the best estheticians and the best facialists. And,
yeah, yeah.
of course their skin's going to be flawless. So it's easy to be able to go out without your mask, so to speak. But
Well, that's an interesting thing that you said, because um, what I found to be the case with photographing, and I didn't get to 100. I think I ended up getting to like 83, and then it was just like, okay, I gotta start wrapping this up. But by photographing that many women, I was able to not only hear their stories, but just kind of start to understand some of the pressures that are behind beauty, and the expectations that are laid upon women. And these are things that I'm like, even before the Me Too movement, because I started this in 2016, it really forced me to start looking at what you guys are actually going through and what it really takes. And of course, I'll never fully understand, but by becoming more aware, and I became more aware through these conversations that I was having, it just really made me open my eyes to just the different things that you guys are faced with in regards to beauty. And you said something earlier. You said some with some of the images that Alicia had, you could tell she might have had some, some type of
Yeah.
something on to enhance or hide. It's funny through doing all of these images. I now have an eye for like, no, there's some foundation. There's okay, you got some concealer going on over there. There's something happening. So, but it's cool. It's very interesting to kind of have my eye honed to just the different textures and different outcomes that makeup can actually create. So again, not knocking it, but I did want to just highlight raw, like intimate beauty. And yeah.
And I appreciate it because there's so many photos out now that are just like over stylized, overdone, filter on Photoshop to the
Mm,
point where when you see some of these people in person, you would never recognize them. And I mean, of course, I always think of the Kardashians when I say things like this because they get called out a lot for their bad airbrushing, but
mm,
so because there'll be something wiggly or something. I don't know, different
yeah. Yeah.
publications will call it out. And I wonder if it changed your work any where you were just like, I don't need to use this much photoshopping or well, not filters because you're expert, so you don't have to use filters. But if I have to
Yeah, we
use,
hate filters. Photographers
yeah,
hate filters.
like, I, I won't even get into it because, yeah, there was a photographer I worked with, and I was like, it looks like an Instagram photo. What did you do? Why does it look like an Instagram photo?
No.
All the filters. But anyway, so I wonder, just like looking forward, did it change in your work also? Because I know you said you had a greater appreciation for women, but did it also change your work in a way where like let women be able to see themselves in the people that I'm photo shooting or wow, that did not come out right.
Photographing, yeah.
Photographing as
I
opposed
photo shoot
to
them too.
yeah. As opposed to like a very unable, unrecognized, or unreachable beauty that even that person that is in the photo doesn't look like.
Yeah. So, prior to the project, I was already a fan of more of a natural touch up. Like I have always hated with a passion, and this is just me. No shade to anybody who does this, but I can't stand that retouching to where the skin looks plastic and it's just not real. Like it looks cartoonish, and
Yeah,
I've
even
never
the
been a fan of
avatar.
that.
No. And considering now that I keep bringing this girl up, she's not a real person, so I can. That fake avatar with the freckles that they signed at CAA. Have you heard?
Yeah, yeah.
Of
It's like, come on, man. Like let's be real with it. So like I've always had more of a natural retouching style. But it like I said, after and during the project with more of my editorial work and fashion, like I'm always looking for ways to keep it as natural and realistic as possible. Now, there are times where I have clients, and this is always like the funniest thing to me is like when they're like, all right, we want the image to look like this. And then I will always start by turning in something that is not as like heavily retouched just to see if they'll accept it. And then there are times where they're like, nope, we need more. And I'm like, well, you're paying me, so okay, but that's not my aesthetic normally. And if you were to go on like my Instagram feed at Kel Bullucks, you can see that the shameless plug. You
No,
can
I
see
mean,
that
I
the
can't. My software is not letting me write things down, and that's why I was taking notes on my paper so I could post it later. Because yeah, it won't let me. Because I would totally be I can still put it as your name. I can change it to Kel B Pics
yeah,
for
cool,
an
cool.
Instagram.
But on those images, for the most part, it's more of a natural, just more of a natural feel to the skin retouching. So
Okay. Nice. Now, as a model, I'm not really privy to the side of the business side of how models come on. Like, I know I go to the ghosties, but I don't know exactly. Sometimes I know, like the decision makers, how does that all come about for your end? Because usually the photographers aren't at the casting. I just meet them on set. So I
exactly.
wonder, like, what is that process for you as a photographer? When does
So
from the client calling you, asking you to be their photographer from that point on? What's the process for you?
So it really depends on the client and the project itself. There are times when, matter of fact, just before the pandemic hit and we were still able to go out, I had to do a shoot at the Baltimore Museum of Art for a publication, and the feature was about a wardrobe stylist here in the area, or wardrobe designer. I'm sorry, fashion designer, and the editor in chief of the magazine, or the photo editor rather, wanted to photograph models in this museum, featuring the designs of this designer. And she was like, "All right, Kelvin, I want 3 models, and I want you to help me like cast them." And I was always cool with that because anytime I can be involved, and that's not always the case, but anytime I can be involved, I do want some type of say. Because one thing that I've learned over the years, and this is another pro tip for the up and coming photographers, is it doesn't matter how good your lighting is. It doesn't matter how good your composition is. It doesn't matter how good the makeup, hair, and wardrobe is. If that person in front of the camera is not performing, or can't create what you envision, then you're all wasting your time. Because it does take more than just like a pretty face or a figure to be a model. And I always get like kickback from that. But the fact of the matter is, it's a profession just like an actor, a photographer, a makeup art, whatever. Like these models who are actually out here doing their thing, they're working at it. It's not just about getting in front of the camera and just looking pretty and doing a pose. Like it is a skill set. As a matter of fact, when I work, now you got me going off on a tangent, but
No,
when I work,
please share, because I've been out of work since March 11th.
yeah.
So these reminders too, but for people who are just entering, I get asked all the time. And so I would love for you to share. It is a profession. It is more than just being pretty in front of a camera, and 10-hour plus day sometimes too. So you have to be able to do all of that and keep it consistent. So I'm loving this. Please.
No, and it's like anytime I work with a model who is like top tier, you can tell the difference because it's almost like I have to keep up with her. Like she's giving me, I call them gifts. When a model is like giving me just more and more, like she's working within the realm of the world that we've created, he or she rather. It up levels everybody's game. And so when you are casting, or when you do have a project that you're working on that might require some talent in front of the camera, do your due diligence and like try to find people who can execute on the vision that you have. But going back to your original question, so that was one example of when I was able to help cast the models by going through an agency here in the DC area. Now there are times where it's just like, all right, Kelvin, here's the mood board, show up on here's the models, show up at this date, this time, and be ready to execute. And that's cool too, because sometimes I just have to, when it's a paycheck, it's like you just got to trust whatever the creative director or whoever has in mind. And now, of course, I am going to give my input because I feel like as professionals, we should always have an opinion about what it is that we're doing. And if something isn't necessarily jiving, there is a way to communicate that in a way that's professional and non-abrasive. Non-abrasive. I'm really a big fan of really like communicating in a way that is that's uplifting and just amenable. So yeah, there's that. I feel like there was another piece to your question that I'm forgetting, but
I think you answered them all, but listening to you, I forgot. I was just thinking, I was like, yes, we hate when we're treated like furniture in the room, as opposed to being talked to like real people. If there's something you want, just explain it, as opposed to just being like, it hasn't happened to me yet, I should say, knock on wood. But a friend of mine was talking about how a photographer or a director was talking right in front of her about the things that they didn't like about her, right in front of her.
That's the worst.
Why would you do that? Why would anyone do that to someone? Because they're still humans, and this is all a profession that people want to do. Don't make it hard. Make it, the goal is to get
Exactly.
the product you want. And if you're going to be negative, that's going to be really hard to get the best work out of someone.
Exactly, and I find because I've been on like different movie sets over the years, just for some stupid stuff I used to do back in the day.
Oh, now
But
you got to define stupid
no,
stuff.
it's just like I would so I'll get into it later. But anyway, so I used to be on like sets for like movies and TV shows, and
Okay.
I would see different directors or assistant directors, ADs. They would sometimes they would just be so rude to people, right? Like we're all here trying to do our job the best that we can. Like I try to approach any situation with another human being with the understanding that we are all trying to do our best, right? And so I don't ever want one of my sets to be a situation where people are feeling like they're being talked down to or that they're less than, because we're all on the same level trying to do something great. Like anytime I'm about to pick up this camera, there's a reason for it. We're here to work and create something amazing. And so I am a fan of creating an environment, because as photographers, this is another pro tip for the up and coming people. You have to set the tone. Even if there's a situation where there's a creative director and the editor of the magazine or whoever, the client is on set, you still have to maintain an environment or create an environment in which people feel safe, in which people feel like they matter and can contribute. Because one thing that I also like cannot stand is when people like you're on a set and they don't want to hear other people's opinions or thoughts or ideas. Because one of my things is I want to hear if I'm doing something, you're like, oh, maybe we should try XYZ instead of this. I would like to hear that. Not saying that I'm always going to do it, but you might open my eyes to something that is like, oh, wait, you're right. Or in other times it might be like, well, no, that wasn't my vision, but thank you for sharing. If you see something else that you think is going to be great, like let me know, because I do want this to be the best. So yeah, just creating an environment
That's
that
a
it
good,
that really makes people feel safe and kind of nourishes and nurtures that creative spirit.
very cohesive. I love it. Because a lot of times I'll show up, not a lot of times, but more times than none. I'll show up to a gig, have no idea what it's for, or maybe I'll know what it's for, but I won't know exactly what they're using it for, what's the motivation behind it, what and so like a lot of the information is very bare bones. You get there and you start having conversations with the different people and you're like, oh, this is what this is for. I mean, I've
Hmm.
shown up to a gig, was told it was print and ended up being commercial, and they
Oh
gave me
wow,
my script right then and there.
really?
Mhm. Yeah, it's happened to me a
And the
couple times.
agency was cool with that? They was just like,
Yeah.
okay, and then we'll talk about that offline.
Now realize I put my foot in my mouth, but they don't watch anyway, so I can say what I want. But yeah, and so it's just times when you're like, can you please give me as much information as possible so I can be as prepared as possible? And I think that's even more important with now with all the restrictions that are be going forward ahead of time, where you can
Exactly.
make a complete decision whether or not you want to do a job, because you know it's going to be safe, you know how many people are going to be on set, you know exactly what they want from you. So when you get there, you're already in go mode. Or if you have to wear your own clothes there, or whatever the requirements are. Because I'm really good about if I know what kind of wardrobe they want, because in North Carolina you have to provide your own wardrobe. I'll go out and buy it, and I'll make sure, or if I'm lucky, I can show them peeks from the dressing room, so I don't have to buy everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I try to be, especially now with smartphones being so easy to use, I do try to make sure the communication there. But I'm curious on your side, is there anything that models should do to make your job easier? I know you mentioned like being able to keep up with them because they're posing and doing the right stuff in that sense. But for newbies that maybe want to get to that level, what are some of your suggestions that you have to for them to do their best?
yeah. No, I love that question, first of all, because I feel like as creators in general, we should always ask the question, what is it that I can do to make the other person's job easier, so we can all, because we're all in this together and it's all a collaborative effort.
Right.
And for me, I love when, first of all, the model shows up with like the right attitude, because attitude is everything. Like come in with energy and gratitude, like that really does go a long way. I mean, I've worked with models who have I've worked with models on both ends of the spectrum, to where some of them can show up and they're just kind of like blah, and they're playing on their phone, and they're not really engaged.
Mhm.
And I get that, but is that really helping the overall outcome? And if not, like, why are you even doing this? Like, why are you here? Is it just a paycheck for you?
Right.
And if it is just a paycheck for you, is this the best use of your time?
Mhm.
So for me, I feel like if a model first of all comes to set with like a great attitude and one of asking questions. Like I love when let's say there's a situation where I wasn't able to communicate the vision prior to with a model. I love when a model is like very inquisitive about, okay, well, what is it that we're doing, and how, like, how should I think about this, editorial in a way that's going to help me perform, like really being open to asking questions, and then also open to the suggestions and the storyline itself, and really just kind of throwing caution to the wind
Mhm.
and just going with it. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, be mindful, like when you're working with people that you haven't worked with before, you want to, don't just be open to anything that people are doing, especially if you don't feel comfortable with it, because you should always feel comfortable. If there's any point in any shoot where you feel like, wait, something isn't right, anytime that spidey sense goes off, you got to
Mhm.
speak up. And if they're not trying to hear what you're saying, then just leave, because I'm hearing horror stories about the things that can happen on these sets. And for me, this is not a game. This is not me trying to like hook up with beautiful people, because there are predators out there like that. So
Mhm.
you do have to be mindful of those things. But in a situation where it's clearly not, that's not the case, and they're saying, hey, I want you to try this, like, what are your thoughts? Be open to listening, and then also sharing your thoughts about what it is, even if you might not necessarily fully think, okay, this is something I can do. Even voice your concern, so they can, because we can't help you if we don't know that there's something that you need. So in marriage, there's this thing where it's like, even before my wife and I got married, we went to premarital counseling, and the counselor was like, in relationships, you want to over communicate. In this marriage situation, there's no such thing as too much communication. And I've taken that and just applied it to everything. So whether I'm working with a model, or whether I'm, working with my best friend on planning a trip to somewhere, like I want to over communicate, so we can make sure that we're all on the same page and everybody's, operating at their highest, because we
Mhm.
can't read minds. And if you're uncomfortable about something, or if you have an idea about something, share it. And then there's going to be times where you might not feel like the people are going to be receptive of it, but at least if you do open your mouth and share, you can say to yourself, hey, I tried, or hey, I spoke up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And there's not those assumptions that could possibly be completely wrong. You know.
Exactly. Oh, and one more thing. For models, one thing, especially if you're like a newer model,
Mhm.
doing mirror work actually does help. And what I mean by mirror work is start practicing in front of a mirror different poses that you want to, experiment with. And you can get those poses, whether it be from like magazines or something that you've seen on TV. Like start looking at poses and try to emulate them in a way that you can do it in a way that makes you feel like smooth and confident, because confidence reads really well on camera when you're projecting it in the right way. And when you can go on set and already have like when you can already have I guess a bag of poses to kind of pull from at any given time, it really just helps the overall process. Because for me, I'm a photographer that likes to capture movement. I like to catch things as they're happening. So it's not about just, oh, strike this pose and hold it. Like I want you to just kind of keep moving, and I want to have to keep up with you. Now, every photographer is not that way, but I feel like if you can come on set and already have some movement ready, that's a great starting place for everyone. So
That's a good point. Because I always think it's great to do mirror work, but also if you have someone that you can work with so you can see how it looks on camera. Or
Exactly.
there's a photographer that I work with a lot here in Raleigh, and he lets me like experiment with them, where I'm just like, okay, I saw this on blah 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 blah. I want to test this out to see if I look good doing it, and he'll let me play with them. So find a photographer you can play with as well if you
That's
can,
real.
or
That's real.
because you really can't. And then he can also give you that feedback immediately, or she, where it's like, oh yeah, you almost got it. Just move your arm a little bit lower, or different things. Because who are some of your models that inspire you? Are there any that you're like, oh, I'd love to work with her? Just because
Yeah.
there's
So
a few I was getting ready to name, but I was like, wait, I don't want to say who inspires me just in case it
of
takes the
course,
water.
the one that is the easiest, and you've already mentioned her, is like Naomi Campbell would be like
It's the queen.
amazing
It's the queen.
to work with. Also, Joan Smalls.
I love Joan Smalls.
Coca Rocha, I believe is
That's
her
what I was
name.
gonna
Like,
say, because she is
yo,
the movement queen.
yes,
She is the
yes,
queen.
yes.
And follow her on Instagram. I think she also has classes that she's teaching for like
Yep.
$250
Yep.
to
I
do her
actually I
classes.
reached out to her once because I
Okay.
saw they had those classes and they're for models, and I'm like, yo, when you gonna let the photographers come through and watch what y'all are doing? Because I feel like what she teaches can also help photographers coach their models. So they said they're looking into it. But
Okay.
but that reminds me. So you asked about you mentioned that models to try to connect with the photographer that they can practice with, and the same is also true for photographers working with models. One of my nicknames on Instagram is the Muse Hunter, because I'm a fan of like having a muse that I can work with consistently and create with and experiment with, and be inspired by, because that's what a muse does, is they inspire. So by having somebody that you can practice with on the regular and try new things, you both are gonna like grow and have a body of work that can be shared and also help you get paid work. So because there are those times where you're gonna have to, not get paid for stuff and do stuff for free. But if you are going to do that, make sure that it's benefiting you for the long run. Like if you're not walking away with something at the end of a free shoot, then you just played yourself. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I would say any shoot, you should walk away with something as
Yeah,
far as education wise goes,
yeah.
but especially if it's for free. No.
Yo, I'm loving this Nicole C.
She's my homie.
Gatewood. I appreciate all the love, man. I love that.
She's in Baltimore. She's my cousin. We've never met other than on Facebook and Instagram. And I don't know how I would be able to do my show sometimes without her, because I'll say my comments aren't working. Oh, I got you. She's writing them down for me, the different things. So I'm like, I'll show
Yeah.
them every once. She's amazing. I love you so much, Nicole. I don't know how I would
What up,
do this.
Nicole? Bmore,
Yeah,
baby.
it must be something about Baltimore. You guys really create some great people up there.
Well, the crazy thing about that is I've only been in this area since 2010, and
Oh,
it has always baffled me. Like the first time I came to Baltimore was like in 1998. I was on like a
there you
4-H trip,
go.
and I like loved the character of the city. I was like, yo, like this is an amazing place, not knowing that like years later I would be in the area.
Yeah.
But one thing that always strikes me is the amount of creativity that these artists have out here. I've always felt like I'm like, yo, why doesn't the world really know about Baltimore for what it is?
Other
In
than
regards to these artists that are out here, because I almost feel like this is like the Harlem Renaissance, but they haven't. I don't know. We haven't like pushed over that threshold for everybody in the world to see that
yeah.
this is more than just The Wire. You know what I'm saying?
No,
So
that's literally what I just said too. Because I pick on her about, oh wait, you're not from Bmore, West Side, Baltimore. Is that the right side that is from The Wire? Now I can't forget, but I will pick on her every once in a while because she's so not West
I'm
Side
sure she's gonna
Baltimore.
throw it up in the comments here in a
Yeah,
minute.
she's an attorney. She's my girl.
Yeah,
But
man.
it's interesting because when I, as a kid, I think I was like a teenager, I went to Baltimore for the first time, and I went to only like seafood restaurants, and
Mm,
I don't, it wasn't SeaWorld, but it was something, an aquarium where they had like
yeah.
dancing dolphins and so on. And so that's what I thought of Baltimore until I watched The Wire. And then it just seemed like everything that ever came out of Baltimore was always so negative. And think now's a good time, while everything's kind of slow, that we can really try to promote and give love to those areas that maybe are being overlooked. So I'm loving that. I'm hearing so much about Baltimore that I'm really gonna have to check out some of these places. What are some of the places in Baltimore people should check out that really showcases the best of Baltimore, would you say?
So, okay, you know, I can tell you a resource that will help you find all of that, and it's called Bmore Art, and it's the letter B and then more, More, art. They have an Instagram page, and they also have a publication, a printed publication that they release quarterly, and they basically put everybody on blast who is in the art community in the city of Baltimore. And I should also say that they hire me quite. I've shot every one of their publications, so I'm kind of like one of their main contributors. And
I'm
shout out to
kidding.
Kara Ober. But yeah, man, Be More Art Journal.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, wow. Time really flies when you're having fun. So we only have, it's almost 7 o'clock. So I want to
Oh
make sure
wow.
if there's anything else that you wanted to promote or share, because I know you can't talk about the thing you just did, but if there's anything else that's coming out, because we're all starving for new content.
I know, right? Hey, I'm starving to
Countdown
be
to
out
the
there.
days. I'm sorry, what?
I say I'm starving to get out there. Like really, this because of the pandemic, that was like my first project that I've had a chance to do since we've been on lockdown. But I can also say, speaking of artists in the DC and Baltimore area, I am working with a curator to showcase these artists who they're black artists or African American artists in the area who have been in the game for like 30, 40, 50 years, and their work hasn't necessarily been in the mainstream because they are people of color, and there's been some boundaries that they haven't been able to cross because of racism. It's let's be
Preach.
real.
I'm a daughter of an
um
artist. Her artwork is behind me.
oh
Always.
snap,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Wait, let
hers.
me see. Let me see. I can't let me,
Hold on, let me move my computer. This is where dyslexia kicks in. I'm like, which way do I move it?
is that
I was
her?
moving
That's
it the
your
wrong way.
that's her right there. That's
That's her
her.
painting. And
Wow.
then I wear
Wow.
her earrings all the time because she also made hand paper earrings. She's been busy lately just making masks,
That's
but
what's up. Like nurture that, man. Like I honestly wish my parents had really kind of like poured more into that whole idea of being a creative versus get good grades and go do XYZ. Which I get it. Like they wanted a better world for us, but anytime you can pour into your
ours,
children and nurture whatever that thing is that's naturally in them, like go for it. So, but what I was saying, the project is geared towards highlighting. It's about 9 of them. They're all elders. And before the pandemic kind of shut production down, I was doing studio visits. We did this big group shoot with all of them. One of them, man, her name is, there was so many of them, but she is the sister, the youngest sister of James Baldwin, the writer. Yeah, yeah. So like just hearing her stories about him, because I had a chance to just sit down and create and while I
love
was
his
doing her
books and
portraits.
his reading. So I'm just like, whoa, I bet she had a lot of fun things to share.
Yes, yes. And as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
so James, going back to one of my favorite photographers, Richard Avedon,
Mhm.
James Baldwin was like really good friends with Richard Avedon, so because they went to school together.
Okay.
So she was around when Richard was around, and she told a story about how the last time she was involved in such a big shoot, like what we did for her, was when she was with Richard Avedon, and that like made
What a
my
full circle moment.
man, yeah, it gave me like chill bumps when she said it, because I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
like this is crazy. So it never ceases to amaze me the places that my camera has allowed me to be. It's been like a key to like a whole other world that I did not even knew existed. So
I think
I think I can end with that photography has absolutely changed my life. So
well, one quick thing. Where are you from originally? Since you're
ha,
not from Baltimore, because I thought
yes.
you were.
No. So I was an army brat, but I was born
Oh,
in
military, Air Force.
yeah. Okay. So
Really?
Army. As a matter of fact, my parents are originally from the Rocky Mount, North Carolina area, but my mom joined the Army, and she had me when she was stationed at Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. So I spent a lot of my formative years there, but then we did travel to like Germany and Texas and
Woo!
North Carolina. So
That's Yeah, I was in Germany as well.
Do you remember which part?
Yeah, Bitburg and
Okay, yeah,
Ramstein.
we were in Stuttgart. Stuttgart.
My
Yeah.
my mom knows that area. Because we were Air Force bases, so it was a little bit different. But I grew up in Europe mainly. I didn't move to States until I was about 13.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, well, I didn't fit in for a while, so that was the hard part. And now with trying to teach my daughter grammar, I realize how many holes in my education, because I went to 26 schools.
Oh,
So
wow.
I moved around a lot.
Wow.
Because yeah, my mom remarried to a movie producer. So then, as if moving every 3 years wasn't hard enough, we were moving like every 3 to 6 months with each production.
Wow.
She started doing stunts as well, and
Did you say stunts?
Yeah, because
That's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was like, yo, I want to be a stunt man, but that didn't happen.
She did was while we were overseas, she did a lot of Shotokan competitions, like all across Europe. She was doing competitions in black belt. So it was, when she came to America, it just was a natural progression when she was on set hanging out with my dad.
Wow.
Her artwork, like this one was in New Jack City, and so she gave that to me.
Snap.
And when we were up in Baltimore, we were working on A Man Called Hawk with Avery Brooks. Do you remember? He was in Star Wars, Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. So I know who he is, but I know the movie. Yeah.
It was a TV show. It was a spinoff from Spencer for Hire.
Okay.
Which I was too young to watch, so I say it, but I don't know what the heck they're about.
No, I remember watching Spencer for Hire amongst there was like TJ Hunter or whatever. Like we used to watch all those shows then, yeah.
At the same time. I don't know. Or Matlock and the lady that
Murder She Wrote?
Yes. I was like, Angela Lansbury. Yeah, it was all around that time.
We telling our age right now, man. We telling our age.
I was just watching. No, I'm kidding. I admitted it. I was 13 when I moved to the States. So yeah. But that's why I was like, I've been to Baltimore, but it was very quick because we were there shooting, and we lived in Georgetown, DC. But we would go whenever we lived somewhere. My dad was very adamant about the fact that we needed to embrace the culture and go to the different museums or learn what was special about that area. That's why I knew about the seafood, crab cakes and all of that. Like even when if I can pick and choose where to have a layover, I'll choose Baltimore just for the crab cakes.
That's what's up. That's where it's at. That's where it's at.
Delicious. They're huge, and it's less bread, more crab, which is exactly how it should be made, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Anyway, it's 7:02. Well, I cannot thank you enough for being my guest today. I absolutely loved it. I will have to have you back because I feel like there's still so many questions for not only just for newbie photographers, because we never really touched on how, like, we touched on the fact that you made the transition, but how you were able to make that transition.
Exactly.
I think that's the hardest part for a lot of artists in general, just to get to the business side of it, where they start monetizing their work and not just doing it for the fun, or people not realizing like attorneys don't do it for the fun of it. Like, you know, like different professions, and it's not saying it's at that same level, but it's the same amount of time commitment can be involved.
Exactly.
Doing a project. I don't think
exactly. Well, I would definitely welcome the opportunity at any point, whenever you want me back, just let me know. And also, the next time I'm in North Carolina, man, we got to connect, man. I got to get you in front of my camera, and we can even get you in on this Face Naked thing, which, by the way, facenaked.com, check it out.
Absolutely.
You know, just share it with a friend, anybody that you feel like would be interested in it, because I more than likely will continue to shoot it, and there will more than likely end up being some type of book, coffee table book, that is created through it. So
I have to bring this up because you brought it up. Have you gotten this book yet?
No. Wait, is that by who's the Oh snap. That thing looks huge.
It's going to be on next week. I haven't opened it yet. I meant to open it this weekend to like go page by page to look at it, but I'm so excited. He's going to be my guest, but yes, iconic Black women who revolutionized fashion. So Naomi's in here, Veronica Webb, everyone. Like, I don't want to start naming names because I don't want to forget some of them, but by Veronica Webb. And
that book is already available for order?
Yep, you can get it from your local bookstore if you want to order it from there to help support local, or Amazon. All the big bookstores have it as well. I will admit that it was on sale on Amazon, so I bought it from there. But
Yeah,
I think it's like $50 to 25, depending on where you get it from. But yeah, really
that's what's
great book.
up.
And it's huge. It's huge. There's so many pages inside.
That thing is huge. Looks
And so
amazing though.
I was saving it so whenever I met him, I'd get it autographed. But now, like, I guess I gotta open it because who knows what that is. Almost all of my books that I like, some of my books that I keep, I keep them. I buy one for me to actually look through, and then I buy one to have them autograph it because I'm that kind of a nerd, and I love this book. And I still have my Italian Vogue where they did the black edition. Like, yeah. Anyway. Now it's 7:05. See how my mouth can go? All right. Well, thanks again for being my guest. I absolutely appreciate you and can't wait to see what you do in the future. And don't forget to send us the links for everything because I will definitely post it. And I can't wait to work with you one day too.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And thanks again. Thanks again. And thank you, Nicole, for all of the love, man. I appreciate that.
She is awesome. So thanks again. And you have a great night.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye. Another great guest. I have been so lucky. Be Live won't let me be great for whatever reason because I can't write comments. I can't really do everything I normally do. So I really appreciate Nicole's help with that. And I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody's comments now that I look through. Everyone's pretty much saying wonderful guest. See, I saw her calling me. I was like, how dare you call me during my show? You just gave it away. Oh, see, I still have you in the green room, so I didn't realize only I can hear you. They can't hear you.
Oh, can they hear?
Yeah, because so it sounds like I was talking to myself, but Kel was still in the waiting room, so that's why I wasn't. I just want to
thank you as well. I didn't shout you out either, but my bad, man. But I appreciate the love as well.
Now, that cousin I have met, she's my first cousin, and she's amazing as well. So greatly appreciate. And she also, well, she's more into the acting side, but she could model.
Do you ever go out to LA at all? Are you ever out there?
My father lives in LA, so I visit him a lot, or used to visit him a lot. Though, so now it's just mainly FaceTime. And my best friend lives there too, so I try. But the last time I went was last March.
Oh so man, yeah, I was just out there in February working on a couple of projects, and I'm so glad I went out there because I wouldn't like the time that I had with the jobs that I was doing, but then I took like a day and rented a motorcycle and rolled it up through Malibu, and like those memories are holding me right now through just sitting in the house doing nothing. So,
have you seen any pictures recently? Because like the sky is amazing now. You can see from downtown all the way to
or smog.
There's no smog. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, the first picture I saw like that, I almost teared up because I was just like, oh, there's no smog. It's clouds and it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. Like clearly the world needed the pause because we were ruining it. But at the same time, it's like, do we have to die in the process?
Exactly. I mean, we're approaching like 100,000, I think is what the number of deaths. But yeah. Not to end on a sad note, but
kind of a good segue. Friday, I will have, I don't know if you saw Lane Rolling. He was with his daughter, Jordan Rolling. They did like a Q&A. He studies viruses. He's on the COVID-19 task force. I'm going to have him as a guest Friday because as much as I love talking entertainment, I need to let the people know what's really going on. So
I'll definitely tune in for that. That sounds like he's going to have some great information.
But I'm excited about because he can say it because he's an instructor as well. So he knows how to say it in words that we can understand. Because he even asked me, do you want the Mickey Mouse version or the doctor version? I was like, both. I don't want anybody to feel left out so that we can really understand what's going on and how we can protect ourselves and our families and our community, because it is the Black community that's getting hit with it the hardest. And I think you even said that your community or where you live is one of the highest hits. And so
in the state of Maryland,
Yeah, I mean, we need this education. We need the information because I think a lot of the media is putting out a lot of things to the point where people are just numb to it because just when can I get out? When can I get out? Why can't you get out is more important. What's the reason behind that? And who are you saving? And why are you still going to the beach? Different things like that. Like, how can you do these things safely? If there is a safe way, I want to hear it from the doctor's mouth as opposed to people who don't study it and have no clue what they're talking about.
And
So
it's
I'm
it's
excited.
definitely it's just a crazy situation all the way around, because I do understand. Okay, let me say this to be clear. It's not safe for us to be opening up everything right now. This is not the time. And at the same time, I also understand that the economy does work for us as well. And I'm really, I don't know, I'm very concerned to see what is going to happen, or what the ripple effects will be of us shutting down for as long as we've had to, which again was needed and is still needed. But there's some ramifications that we need to be ready for, after this is after the dust settles, or the
I
Rona
just
settles rather.
I took an economics class in college, and I remember that they showed us a letter where Ford had put in the cost it would cost them to change that one part of the Pinto as opposed to letting people die. And it was cheaper for them to let people die than to
Mm,
change the part of the Pinto. And that was
mm,
a real conversation that happened. So when I hear these different things about we're opening this, it's like it could be because they've calculated the fact of how many percentage of people are going to die because of this, and they're willing to take that loss in the sake
exactly.
of profit or whatever. And so I implore you to please tune in Friday, just for the sake of, you can hear from a doctor who's not trying to sell you his prescriptions or his test or who knows what. Because even with like different dental offices and like different places that are opening and sending me emails opening, and I'm like, but how do you know that the patients you're bringing in aren't going to put everybody at risk in your office?
Exactly.
Even what are you doing that's going to make me feel safe enough to come in? I was like, I'll be back in July. I'll wait. I don't need to go to the dentist this month after all. It's just a teeth cleaning anyway.
September or something, yeah. Shoot.
Like, I'm gonna wait until we'll see, because it's just, you really start wondering what is worth going out there for and what's not. I mean, clearly I have to get food and different things. And I do understand that not everyone, because my husband's been working the entire time. I do understand that people can't always depend on staying home and have to find a way to make money. And especially those that are the grocery store workers and fast food workers, like all of them, my hats are out to you and my heart as well. But for the rest of us that can stay home, I think it's very important that we do,
Exactly.
to keep that number. I want to hear more from him, like what his thoughts are, especially with the film industry opening back up. Like, that's not like any other job. You could be kissing someone, like
Exactly.
there's people touching your face, putting makeup on you, and you don't know where their hands have been.
Have you
So, I mean,
seen some of the guidelines that Tyler Perry has like put out on what he's gonna do for reopening his studios?
I have. And I had a guy on from Iceland a couple of weeks ago, because they've opened back up, but they only had 10 people die from
Mm.
coronavirus in their whole country,
Oh wow.
because they shut down quickly. And before you could even get on set, because they've opened it back up for film, athletes, and one other profession, they're allowed to still come back. Like, they need to come there for work, but they require that upon entering, you have to be tested. You have to spend 14 days in quarantine just to make sure you don't have it before you can even go to work. So you have to have that flexibility still. And I love that for Tyler Perry. He has that opportunity because, an Army base is huge. And that's what his studio is based on, is
Exactly.
a former Army base. So there's barracks for days, which is like dorm rooms. And there's houses and not governors, the different officers' homes that are
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
places to stay. But I don't know how that's going to work in cities like New York or California, where it's a little different. So, but see, now we're at 7:14. I could talk. I could
No,
talk shop
well,
all
I
day.
do have one more question for you, because you have you're really good at getting guests. Like, do you have a booking agency, or are you doing all this yourself?
I do it, all of it. So I produce it myself. I find my guests myself. Everything, I'm doing it myself. All the
That's what's
promos,
up.
editing, pictures, everything. I taught myself. Some things are useful through app, like Canva has saved me a lot as far as like making promos, because I don't know how to Photoshop, unlike yourself.
Yeah.
And Canva is my saving grace, and iMovie. So that's what I make my little videos with, is with iMovie. And thankfully, I have a wonderful musician, Breed Beats, and also Fancy, who gave me some music that I could use for my intro to make it look all professional and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I taught doing it all. It's a one-woman shop all by myself.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man. Yeah, I have to. I guess I'll have to shoot you a message to kind of figure out your technique for. I'm assuming you're doing like cold emails for some of these people, just like how you kind of left me a message.
It's called comments in the comment section. To be honest with you, I build the relationships with them where I'm liking pictures, talking, and then once they start replying, I'm hooked. I gotcha. What did I do next? Like, once you see me, I
that's
know
what you did. That's what I'm just teasing.
Well, now I don't get to do it so much, but I mean, like, you know what it's like being an entrepreneur. Your job never turns off. So anytime they reply back to me, I'm right there like, oh, yeah, girl. Or,
what about Orlando Jones? How did you get Orlando?
That's a good point. So this is a funny story. I was a guest on a different show, and after the show, he offered me my own talk show with his network. Oh, wow. And on that same network, Angie Everhart was on it. You've heard of her, the supermodel? Yeah. And needless to say, that all disappeared. And Angie decided she was going to have her own show, and she filmed it here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And it was in Orlando's studio. So
he has a studio out there.
He lives here.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. Apparently, he used to live in South Carolina and would write all these commercials for North Carolina, like Food Line and different things. That's what he did before he even did Mad TV. I found that out in the interview because I was like, wait, what? How have I never heard this before? But so from that connection, I found out who his publicist or manager is, because they had the same manager. And since I had her contact information, we became friends on Facebook. And I was like, hey, girl. She's like, I don't do business on Facebook. I'm like, okay. What's your email? So I can hit you up.
Well, thanks for letting me know.
Because I get it. It gets flooded. So we started talking through email, and she actually reps a few people. And I asked to interview all of them. But Orlando was the only one that she was willing to give me at that time. Because so Snoop Dogg's the other person that she reps. And she's like, he only does national now.
That's crazy, man.
But to perform, ooh, easy. But
you just touched on something that I meant to mention while we were talking, and it really does always come down to the relationships that you've built. Like that's how I got a lot of great jobs, was through like connecting with people and staying in touch and being of value. I meant to say that, but maybe next time.
Got it in this part. I'll just edit all the other stuff out and just get this part. No, I'm kidding. I couldn't even say that because BeLive has been driving me nuts today. They were like, oh, you don't want this recorded? We heard that. No, I do. I want all of it. But I was really lucky in that sense that whenever, and even like next month is almost fully booked, because one publicist, I interviewed one of her talent, and then she was like, well, here's the rest of my roster. Who would you like? And I was
that's what's up. See, that's what I'm talking about. You presented yourself and you were of value. And, when you do right and you're professional, man, it always works out.
It's a learning curve because it's not like I went to school for this. I don't know how regular journalists or booking agents do it. And I will say the group that you and I are in also helped me to find you in that sense too. So joining different groups that fit my interests, where I can end up finding people that, like, cause I didn't know how PR public, like I didn't know any of that. It's a whole other world, man. Whole learning curve in that sense. So as of March 26th, I've been doing this all on my own.
Man, your resume is expanding.
And the connections, like that's the other part where I'm like, dang it, I have to go back to work and edit and learn about the next person. So I don't always get to build with the person I just interviewed, because I'm like, oh, I gotta get to my next one and start for tomorrow. But thankfully Instagram is 24/7, so I can very easily write people whenever, and they'll just write me back when they have the time. But
good stuff. Well, I appreciate you again for the opportunity, and we're definitely going to stay in touch, man. Like I feel like even when I was watching your videos, I was like, you feel like somebody that I know. So
it's the military thing. Very quickly adaptable to new friends, I think too.
Exactly.
Well, I can't tell you again how much I appreciate having you on my show. And I hope more people will check out The Face Naked and think twice about adding all that Photoshop and Facetune, because it's really not necessarily you're
Not
beautiful
at
as
all.
you are. So
Exactly.
thank you again for being my guest, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
All right. I look forward to it too.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye. All right. How much fun. Thank you guys for bearing with us, because we did get, I mean, it's hard to stop talking about shop once you get started, because when you haven't been working for so long, all you want to do is get back to work, but at the same time, when it's safe. And so it was nice to have somebody to chat it up with that I've never worked with, to hear his perspective and how things are ran in Baltimore. So very interesting. Thank you guys so much for staying with us, because we did go way over an hour. And it was so funny that I was just telling the body language expert, Blanca Cobb, that I was going to try to see if I could start making my shows only 30 minutes, because people are going to go back to work and may not be able to spend the whole hour with me. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time and spending it with me today or tonight. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. And don't forget to definitely tune in every day for the rest of the week at 6 o'clock, but especially Friday, so we can get your questions answered. Or if you can't watch, send me your questions. I'll ask them, and you can watch it in the replay or on my YouTube channel. I also post it there for those that don't have Facebook, so you can share it with your family and friends who may not have YouTube. So again, thanks for being my guest. I really appreciate it. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.